Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the June 17th meeting of the Powell Planning Commission. It's a joint meeting tonight with the Parks and Recreation group. We're going to do a board member roll call. We'll do Planning Commission first, and then members from your group. You can pull your chairs up and sit around the table if you like.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds great. You want us to know that?
Sure. Yeah, you can do that. Sure.
Committee members, yeah.
So board member roll call.
David Fowle,
Fred Miller,
Stacy Boxer,
James Parmelo.
and
All right, Nathan Fowle, Parks and Rec.
Seth Jenkins, Parks and Rec.
Alexander Wild, Parks and Rec.
Brian Papa, Parks and Rec. I feel like full disclosure, I should say Mason's son.
It's out there now.
It's a,
we're gonna
I
go.
don't want anyone catching me out on that.
And that's to be the approval of tonight's agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're gonna go to approval of minutes for June 3rd meeting.
My understanding is that they're not yet complete, so we were going to
We
feed
could
some more
we
information
can
in.
table this until.
So we'll table it to the next meeting.
Okay. Need a motion to table,
Motion to table. Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that brings us to the VCRC Center Street Improvement Final Report, review and discussion with Parks and Recreation.
Cool. Hey, thanks so much for having us here. So yeah, we, as I'm sure you folks are, really excited about, this report and all the really hard work that those folks did to, go out into the community and get input on kind of what folks wanted. And they did a great job of kind of condensing that down into some really interesting recommendations, many of which I think are absolutely achievable given sort of a long enough time scale and some good sort of excited volunteers to work on the project. So I guess in a general sense, our goal here was to kind of get a feel for how you were all feeling about that report and, sort of these recommendations that they've made, which ones you feel like you are excited about sort of prioritizing. And then we would sort of, I guess your part is really sort of figuring out a way to kind of incorporate those things into the town plan. And given that, we have some people that are looking into applying for a grant to do a scoping study that would be able to cover a lot of the sort of bike ped infrastructure stuff that's going into this. Parks and Recreation is really excited about, the playground, walking path, a few other improvements down here. So yeah, I think the goal is to just kind of get on the same page about what projects you all are excited about that we can kind of actively start to pursue. So some of these are really ambitious, and I know like just the thought of putting a crosswalk across Route 7 like kind of makes me shudder a little bit because I'm starting to learn the amount of work that goes into it. But for the time being, I really want to try and kind of suspend disbelief as much as we can and really try and kind of assume that this is achievable. And we have a ton of support from BCRC, and we have a lot of energy right now to really like actively pursue some grants. So I think I don't want to lose momentum. And I think if we really can kind of get the ball rolling on this and keep it rolling, we really do have a chance at making some of these things happen. So I don't know exactly how to go from there. I was imagining we kind of just go through these different sections and sort of look at each one and just kind of have a little bit of discussion about, whether we think it's worth pursuing. If there are any questions, we, hopefully sort of the group collectively will have, spent enough time with the report that we'll be able to kind of find answers for any questions that come up. Is there any, from your end, like kind of, have you folks had a discussion about this at all or sort of how you want to proceed with it?
Well, first, I have a question is, do you have any kind of a graphic that would lend a visual.
I have I have the BCRC report here, which has like a couple of maps and things like that. And we could probably figure out a way to get that up on the screen if you think that would be helpful. What do you think, guys? So the BCRC report, like, yeah, just in the first couple of pages, it's split weirdly, but it's like there's these two halves of a map.
Is it not out here still?
I was wondering, they printed them out, and they had them on the wall there. I don't know if
Is
they're
it still
still
out there? I mean, if it is, maybe we can just take a look at it. No, it's not. Okay. Well, and I can kind of, in a very general sense, kind of give you an overview of kind of they have a bunch of recommendations that I can sort of talk you through kind of the general idea of what we're talking about. So sort of one of the big things, and this is what our scoping study is going to focus on, is infrastructure improvements along Route 7 that are sort of designed to both reduce the amount of collisions, because that's a really high collision spot, and also make it sort of safer and more accessible for people to be able to walk, especially the kids at the elementary school who, you know, at this point, I think are sort of not really able to get much of anywhere from the elementary school safely. So the big picture vision of that is kind of connecting this triangle that'll be sort of, you know, from the school, crosswalking over to Center Street. And then Center Street will get some improvements to sort of allow for bike traffic and pedestrians to move along the side of the road there safely, to bring them down to this spot and to the park. And then they also have some improvements planned for kind of right out at Route 7. It's like some infrastructure to sort of make it more clear that there's a bus stop there and sort of make that a little more accessible. A crosswalk to sort of complete that loop over to Barber Pond Road, and then bike infrastructure that will allow people to get from coming off Barber Pond Road over safely to Burrington Road, where they can kind of continue riding off of Route 7. And the other big element of that is this, they call it like a rollover roundabout down here. So the idea is that it'll slow traffic coming, you know, down and up North Powell Road. And we'll have some signage there that can sort of direct people into Central Street. So it's sort of quelling traffic, trying to encourage people to come down here while still allowing fire trucks to blast over that thing at full speed without having to go around it. So in terms of, those sort of upgrades, I think that's pretty much the gist of it, right? Is there anything I'm forgetting in sort of that kind of chunk? I don't think so. So then, you know,
I think that maybe less involved recommendation is simply signage, right? Signage of
definitely
to Center Street Park and the other parking amenities we have in the town, just signage on Route 7. And that's something for the planning board to consider is, you know, how to go about signage throughout the town for all the recreation activities we have.
Yep, definitely. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm trying to think about our approach to this. So having just done the open meeting law training today, I learned that our board, the planning commission, is an advisory board. We don't make any decisions. We're writing, you know, ideas. Now we or the town, I'm not even sure, hired BCRC to do a lot of work and a lot of conversation and came up with these plans that all sound wonderful to me. Whether or not they're practical or how to implement or things like that, that's not even this committee's work. I don't think, you know, correct me if I'm wrong. I can see the value to saying, you know, this particular idea doesn't make sense because of something that they didn't know or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would probably start from the position of saying, these are all great ideas and anybody wanting to run with one of them, go for it. Unless there are things in this room where people are saying, you know, this one really bothers me, or this one, I think it's the wrong direction to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so start with the default of yes.
I mean, that's certainly how we're trying to approach it. And yeah, I think that there are a few items in here that we do want to think about. Sort of, there's obviously a limited amount of sort of energy to get these things done. So obviously a town plan is like a really long-term planning document. So just because we can't get these things done this year doesn't mean they shouldn't be in there. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the general idea is, we can kind of pop through this real quick and just if there's something in here that folks really don't feel good about, or think is not an idea that makes sense, like we should definitely discuss those things. I think,
Can I just, sorry,
Yeah.
I have a question. So in that regard, does that mean what you just said is that everything that's in the BCRC plan, you would adopt for the next town plan?
I'm not aware of any reason why I would not want anything. There were a few things in the way it was presented here that I thought needed a little more clarification. Just like, traffic calming, reduce vehicle speeds along Route 7. Well, no, it's around Route 7 from here to here, and we should delineate that. So little details like
Details.
that,
Mhm.
that we should just be clear about. We're not saying we want to reduce all through Pownell. And the safe crossing, it mentions Burrington Road, and we're not doing a crossing at Burrington Road. We're doing a sidewalk along Route 7, right? So just clarification kinds of things. Those are the ones that came, those were the only two that came to me. And those are the kinds of things I'm suggesting. Maybe this board wants to just make sure we understand what we're saying. And again, maybe there's a reason that I don't know that some of these are bad ideas, but I didn't see any bad ideas.
well, and yeah, I think, to be sort of candid, like I think because the select board is really busy trying to kind of keep the town running, the reason we wanted to come to you guys is because I think it means something to them if you all sort of support putting and sort of put this in the draft. Because then, yeah, it sort of gives the select board more confidence that this is kind of a group effort and that we all really are behind
Nathan,
it.
can you apply for this grant prior to us completing the town plan?
We can definitely apply for it prior to you completing the town plan. I think we would love to, we'd love to basically get a little letter from you guys that says, we support this, we're intending to put this in the town plan. And then, yeah, we're working with a small group, to look at applying for this scope and study grant, which is.
What we're currently doing right now is we're looking at the existing town plan. And we're analyzing it, doing an autopsy on it,
Mhm.
and trying to figure out if it represents the town as it is now, or as it should be, and we're trying to define what is town, and what is the best future for the town. Some of these elements definitely would probably work, would fit with where we're at right now.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that necessarily all of them would.
Sure.
So I would be hesitant to build our town plan around this.
Mhm.
Include elements of this definitely, but not build a town plan around it
Yeah,
or any other idea.
for sure.
We've got a lot of work and thought to go into it and a lot of discussions to be had.
Yep. Well, yeah, so sort of this document that everyone has, I think kind of the idea is that these bolded sort of things at the top are sort of the sort of top line goal of what these particular changes are promoting. So I think like in terms of thinking about how this could slot into the town plan, I think one way to approach it is to kind of have these bolded sort of sections be the kind of beginnings of discussions about these sort of improvements around, and really sort of the big picture thing is like we as a town want to focus on trying to sort of develop the town center in a way that makes it more accessible for kids, for visitors, and like makes it safer for all parties involved, and then yeah, and I'm with you. I think we should really go through these because I think some of them are maybe not realistic or not worth putting our efforts toward pursuing right now. But especially the ones that we can get you folks excited about, I think those are really the ones we'll want to focus on first.
First one,
Mhm.
I've mentioned over the years several times, calming the traffic down.
Mhm.
And that isn't just about what's around the town park. I mean, it's all the way to Massachusetts.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't think number 8 is a good idea.
The 8,
The mini roundabout?
Yeah. There might be something way in the future,
Uh-huh.
but for right now, it's not,
Yeah,
not necessary, I don't think necessary.
no. And I mean, the other thing is if you're highlighting in bold, certain things, 17, why isn't that highlighted? In the fire department, this community is a big resource.
Number 17. Well, so I think,
Bold, or I think are just heading, category headings.
yeah, so like, it's like,
Category.
yeah, I mean, I think it's totally fair that we should make that kind of a bigger category on its own, especially given that I know there's been some sort of developments with the brownfield. So like, this is a document that Jen put together. This is certainly by no means perfect. And I think,
I mean, I back my fire guys up completely.
uh-huh.
Jimmy will say the same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, the fire department is our livelihood, so is the rescue squad. You know,
Mhm.
we, Pownell, as far as the rescue squad's considered,
Yeah.
so.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I think that's absolutely a project worth pursuing and including in the town plan. So,
We should go back to what you said. Maybe we take like a bold area. We're talking about safety and mobility, and there's 8 or 9 different points there. And I hear, maybe the rollover roundabout, we're not so sure about.
mhm.
Stop sign, yield sign, I don't know what we should have. But
Mhm, mhm.
certainly agree with, make sure people aren't zipping through there. How maybe we aren't quite so sure.
Well, sure. And again, because this is a really long-term plan, like the process for putting in a roller roundabout would probably be something like a demonstration project first, where we would sort of mark out where that roundabout would exist, put some cones up, put some signs up and tape, sort of based on the way that the town and the state would want us to deal with that, and let people kind of see how it feels. And then we can get feedback from the community. We can put up, we can track the speed of cars passing through there, and sort of then using data from that demonstration project, make a decision about whether we think it's worth doing.
And
I don't even know. What is it now? You have a stop on Center Street and
Yeah, so-
the other way is through.
Mhm.
I mean, we've never had,
Problems?
I think part of the goal there in the report was really, it was more about trying to slow down traffic as sort of a form of placemaking. It was like to encourage people to kind of take a second and realize that Center Street is here, and maybe give them this opportunity to kind of take a second and think about making this turn instead of continuing on. So I think that's really what it was about, is sort of slowing people down to give them this chance to make some kind of more like emotional connection with kind of where they are in town.
There might be other ways to achieve that as well.
Absolutely. Well, and I think,
Signage.
like Brian mentioned, like I think signage is definitely, that's super low hanging fruit.
Particularly if, we could get something visually right at the beginning of that street, which attracted your eye, whatever that first building is, if that could get developed or something like that, that would make a huge difference.
There's like a specific type of sign that you can apply to get put on the state road that points towards like sort of important village center districts like this. So even something that just says like Pownell Town Center, Town Hall, and with an arrow this direction could kind of help with that.
What's the status of that brownfield site anyhow?
Well, so the last I know, I think was actually from the meeting that you guys had with Jim Henderson. Was that you all, where he was encouraged, or maybe it was the select board? That was the select board. He was encouraging the select board to adopt something that would sort of allow us theoretically to kind of do remediation on this project and like buy the brownfield. But it sounded like, to me, don't quote me on this, my understanding was that there was some sort of problem in terms of the person who owned the brownfield not necessarily being interested in selling that to the town or giving it to the town anymore.
There had been discussion of a sale, as I understand it, and he kind of pulled back from it once he sort of gleaned the fact that this property might actually be worth something to him.
And, BCRC said, that brownfield is one possible option, but building a new firehouse on the existing firehouse site is also theoretically an option. So
The brown lot, that was, last I think I had heard that was identified as a potential site for the fire department.
yeah, yep. For sure. Yeah, and the beach,
I wouldn't go along with anything in this or any other plan that would compete with that,
That was what?
that would compete with that. That use.
oh yeah, no, I don't think there is anything else in the plan that calls for sort of taking over any of that space. I mean, I think really the way they visualize this plan is kind of the firehouse is kind of the crown jewel of the whole thing, right? Because it's this really big, beautiful building. It's right on the main road there, and it kind of shows that we're like a real town. So yeah, I think there really isn't
Nice to
anything.
see that happen.
Mhm. Yeah, and you know, all the other infrastructure around there is set up just to make it easier for people to kind of move around that space and kind of make it feel like more of a neighborhood. But I don't think any of it is sort of set to interfere with that, certainly. And also luckily, like the types of grants and funding sources that we would need for those are also not necessarily competing. So it doesn't, yeah, just because we got funding for one doesn't mean we can't go for the other as well. So, yeah, I mean, do you guys want to just kind of cruise down this list real quick? I mean, I don't need to like read through everyone, but yeah, just like looking at the safety and mobility improvements, like, are there any that you guys are really excited about? I hear that maybe the rollover isn't a priority. I think that totally makes sense. I think really important from our perspective is safe crossings. I think that's kind of one of the really big ones we want to focus on. And that's,
Vehicle speed.
yeah, well, and so that goes with it.
The passing lane on Route 7. Everything on Route 7 from Massachusetts to here was built around that racetrack.
Mhm.
And the racetrack's been defunct for decades.
Mhm.
So, I think something can be done there.
Yeah, so, you know.
I could probably get shot for saying you don't have a passing lane. Get a lot of people.
I mean, I'm with you. So one thing that I learned just recently is there is a program where if a town wants to, they can sort of take over a section of state highway like this and turn it into what they call like a class 1 town road. And so
And we have to maintain it.
well, yeah, it's not, we don't have to do all the maintenance, but it changes the way the responsibilities work a little bit. And in exchange for that, what we get is the ability to do things like reduce the speed limit, remove emerging lane, put signs wherever we want to that don't have to comply with these like really stringent state standards. So like that's, I think, another thing that you all might want to consider as part of the town plan. And it's from talking with the BCRC, it seems like there are a lot of advantages to doing that potentially, although it does mean probably we'd have to put some more money to it than we do now, certainly. But if we control that road, then we can do a lot of things that we're not able to do right now. And this project, even if we don't do that, you know, putting in the crosswalks, there are some things we can do to reduce speed as people are kind of coming around that corner, and at least make sure that by the time they hit Barber Pond Road and people are crossing, they're going a reasonable speed. And Tara's made some really good progress on that. I want to give credit where it's due. I don't know who else has been working on this, but these like flashing sort of lights at either end to try and help slow people down. So yeah, I think from Parks and Rec perspective, that's also like an incredibly important piece of this.
One thing I know is in the plan, and I'm not spotting it in here, is the bus stop, which I think, you know, I'm amazed that we have bus stops right up there at the store. We have one at the library, but there's no hours posted as to when the bus goes by, which just makes me crazy. How would the bus company want it that way? But point being, a bus stop with a kiosk, so you have some shelter. It's a nice place to put up a bulletin board for town events or something like that. I mean, it has a multi-purpose thing. And to me, that would be a really nice enhancement. Maybe it's in this somewhere and I just missed it.
It's possible it's in there, and I couldn't point it out specifically, but that definitely is in the plan. And, you know, that's one of those things that I think would likely be kind of a phase thing, right? Because we could start by putting in signs and then, yeah, like because the signs could come before anything else, and then we can include in the scoping study and then get some ideas of how much it's going to cost and sort of start looking for funding for actually like building the shelter and doing sort of the road improvements at a later time. But certainly like in an 8 or 10 year span, I think it's reasonable to think that we could make some good progress on that.
And I think that was part of the plan as I read it, or maybe I was in conversation with one of the VCR guys, that the road is very wide, and narrowing the road actually slows people down in itself. If you have a pullout for a bus stop, that slows people. I mean, all these things work together. So this is a long range thing, is that we got to get the state's approval, but I think it's a good plan that if we started work, maybe 5-10 years from here, we'd have it.
So that bus route, the bus stop is going both ways.
Yeah.
It's on the shoulder by the village market. It's on the shoulder across the street from the village market.
Well, so you have a sign on one side and a kiosk on the, I don't know what the best thing or.
Well, yeah, and I think the eventually,
Both of them involve private property.
Yes.
interesting.
Well,
Landlords.
at least what I thought was the right of way for Route 7 was wide enough that if you narrowed, again,
I thought it was like 25 feet from the center line or something like that.
something we'd have to.
15, well, yeah, something certainly worth looking into, but I think even if we had to get permission from the private landowners there, I think, the village market would probably be psyched to give us a little bit of their space.
Others would like it too. It's going to benefit their residents.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's an easy sell to whoever we need to kind of get on board for that one.
Those were designated from the state, those bus stops.
They were designated by the state.
They
Okay.
had to be pre-approved.
Uh-huh.
So in other words,
It's the signage that bus company, Green Mountain has not posted or put up. They do put out small signs.
Says bus stop.
It might be something for somebody to reach out to them and say. The only problem is where would you put the sign? I mean, you'd have the landowner's permission to put up a post.
we're working on, because of the Western New England Greenway project and Parks and Recreation is working on putting up some recreational signage, like there are hopefully at some point some signposts that are going to be going up along Route 7 there, so we may be able to share signposts in some cases. And yeah, it's a cumbersome process, but it is possible. We sort of see the path to of how to get there now. So that's
and Green Mountain can be actually an asset to that.
Sure.
They have the capability of having the bike racks on the front of their buses.
I think you're right. And if we hold their feet to the fire, I bet they would help us figure out how to get those signs up and maybe even contribute to a little kiosk or something like that. Cool. Okay. So just for the sake of time, I don't want to cut anything short here. Do folks feel pretty good about the other stuff that's in there? The advisory shoulder, I can kind of briefly explain that. The idea is sort of to have, it's like a dashed line it's like 6 or 8 feet from either side of the road. And this is kind of a new style of sort of infrastructure that they're trying out. The idea is that, like, under normal circumstances, cars drive as they normally would. And this dashed line sort of indicates that there may be pedestrians or bikers using that section of the road. And if they are, then you safely navigate around them when you have an opportunity to. So it's a really easy, like super low cost way to make that a really safe walking and biking road without having to do any big infrastructure improvements, because it's just paint. And that's a town road, so we don't need state approval for that or anything. That's just a matter of pulling together the money and, getting the road crew or hiring a contractor to go out and do it.
So on item 9, right? Which is Schoolhouse Road and North Palmer Road. I just drove that road coming here. Narrow road, and the houses are right on the road. So you're building a sidewalk or whatever. You're going to put an advisory lane on a narrow
On the
road.
existing road.
Well, yeah, that's the idea, is like if these advisory lanes are sort of designed specifically to deal with this kind of scenario where the road is narrow. So and the advantage of it is that it doesn't in any sort of permanent way take up any space on the road. So if there's no one there, you can just drive on it like it's a normal road. It's really just a visual indicator that's on the road that there might be people walking down there.
Instead of sidewalks.
And no sidewalks. And yeah, I think, that this has sort of been, I would imagine, proven in some way to sort of increase the amount of safety for sort of pedestrians or bikers along roads like this. So that's the idea. And yeah, the hope is that it really, given that there aren't going to be a ton of people walking on it anyway. And also most people don't typically drive on that road unless they're going to visit someone there or whatever. I don't imagine it'll have too much of an impact.
I think that's a good idea.
That one's really kind of for the elementary school kids. You know, the hope was that they could like get on their skateboards, go across Route 7 at a crosswalk and like skate down here to the park or something like that.
Be actually pretty nice to see a sidewalk down over there by the school.
Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I
Regular
think
sidewalk.
they're not totally out of the question. I mean, it's another project to work on with the state, but certainly like in order to even do the crosswalks, we need at least little sections of sidewalks. So then we can say, okay, well, maybe we take this sidewalk from the edge of the crosswalk to town hall, and then we can do a little section over here and sort of slowly work our way through. Yeah. Okay, so let's jump down to preservation and placemaking. So, working on the scenic pullovers on Route 7, what do you guys think about that?
I miss them.
I mean, yeah, we could focus not on developing new ones, but just cutting trees at the existing ones so people could get a view again.
Land, isn't it?
I don't know.
I think it is.
Is it?
That was what I was told was the problem.
Interesting. Oh, yeah. You know whose land it is? I think it's Joel Burrington's land. Like, what about the idea of trying to develop a new one? Is that something we should focus on? Or, I mean, to me, like, I think the scenic view here is really great. Like, I feel like we'd almost get more bang for our buck putting signs that point to the pollinator garden, let people just come down here and sit in the Adirondack chairs. It's, kind of the same view.
Well, I take it from, the point of view of the planning commission and the idea of developing scenic visual openings goes in the plan. I love it. Now, where and when and how, not my job.
And yeah, we can figure that out at a later date. I think it's more just.
The most practical one.
Yep, sure. And there's, Burlington Road has options. Like it's certainly doable if it's something that people think is important. And
us trying to figure out where and when is a waste of time, frankly.
Well, yeah, and that's a great thing for like a scoping study or something like that, right? We can have someone else do some thinking about that.
I'm all for the general top line, a nice thing.
So increasing the historic signage, that's kind of going to be a Conservation Commission project. We'd love to be able to add more historic markers and just more sort of signs by historic buildings or and also even in the parks, like in the town forest, being able to add interpretive signs that tell the story about the tannery or the Fish and Game Club. So those types of projects.
I find those. When I'm walking, those are great. When I'm in a car, they're useless. So the only place that makes sense to me to put them is where people are walking. I'm not usually getting out of my car at the tannery, even though it'd be interesting to read about it, but that's not a part of the road that I want to walk on. Sure. So,
There's informational sign at the tannery too already.
Well, there's a marker like. There's some benches there sort of right by the train tracks where there's a little marker, but it's true. It's like, it's in a little park, but there's no sign to tell people that there's a park there, yeah. So it's all super interconnected.
I would certainly say, signage where in walking areas, it doesn't make sense otherwise to me.
You can combine it with your scenic outlook.
With what?
Combine it with the scenic outlook plan too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Yep. I like those kind of like, those sort of low-lying plaques that have like a map of the area and tell you what mountains you're looking at.
And now there's a river and there used to be this over here. And
have you all talked about the town hall, the old town hall at all? Is that?
I think that's still to be determined. The last I knew.
Yeah.
I attended meetings here, a couple of meetings.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and this is pretty vague, right? It's just.
The future of that.
So, I think that's one where maybe that's kind of our policy is wait and see. I know there's time between now and when the draft of the town plan comes out. So maybe we'll have a little more clarity on that. And,
I think the question is whether it'll always still be town property.
Right.
Private property.
Yeah. Well, if the town decides to keep it, then obviously, this is pretty general, just like look at what the uses could possibly be, right? I think we can all get behind that. Or yeah, if the town sells it, then we don't have to worry about it. So Memorial Plaza, they were talking about a little rearranging out here, kind of pulling some of the historic markers and memorials that are sort of scattered around together into kind of, I think it's kind of on this island here. And then sort of think about whether there are other monuments or things we might want to kind of put in that same zone to try and again, kind of attract people down to this area to do a little kind of historic sightseeing.
Be opposed.
Okay, so then the firehouse is the next one. Obviously, we're all super behind that. Route 7 commercial stretch. So we talked a little bit about the streetscape improvements. The painted medians and planters are there to slow down traffic. I think the talk about the roundabout at North Powell Road, I guess it's saying that visibility is maybe an issue there too, given the speeds that people are coming through, but I don't know that there's been a traffic study done on that area. So maybe that's something easy we can start with, is just trying to kind of get an idea of what the data is on whether or not that's like, because if it's a safety thing, maybe we do want to consider a roundabout. If it's just to try and get people to turn left, maybe it's not as much of a priority.
Roundabouts on Route 7 would not be popular.
Oh, yeah, and this is.
But it's not on Route 7.
It's right down here.
It's
Yeah,
right here.
It's right here. Yeah, right.
And I can, just because I live on this street, I can say that cars come around from here just as fast as they're coming up Route 7. It's crazy. And
It's definitely
I'm
high speed.
the lone biker in town, so for me, it's dangerous.
Well, no, that's a great perspective. And again, like it's
Right here.
Intersection where the chickens are that are,
The chickens, and the chickens,
I can't believe the chickens don't get run over.
they don't.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, there's no harm in including that in a scoping study and seeing like, what would the cost be? What would the potential benefits be? I mean, that's really, putting in the town plan is basically just saying, this is something we want to kind of explore further. So I don't think by saying yes to studying this roundabout, we're committing to actually doing it. It's just to look at like what the actual benefits would be.
And again, I think our work as a planning commission is to say we are looking at various things to leverage Route 7 as an economic corridor, and improving usability and aesthetic appeal. And we might have some bullets under there as possible projects, but we're not necessarily getting to that level of detail.
Sure, totally. Well, yeah, and really, I think a lot of the purpose of this is to kind of get an idea of what you're excited about, just so that we can start focusing on the ones that are like, we all are very much in agreement on. And then you guys can work out the details of the ones that are like maybe less high priority at a later time. So then we have some stuff down at the park here. So amphitheater for events and a food truck platform to encourage regular gatherings. So this is like a much longer term thing. I think they had the amphitheater as kind of the last project on their list as kind of a 10+ years. We talked about it a little bit, and I think feel free to chime in. My recollection is that we were excited about the idea of like having a food truck come down and park there. I don't know that we need a special platform for them. And the amphitheater is a cool idea, but also just, an expensive idea in a list of priorities that are maybe a little more achievable. So that's not to say we shouldn't do it, but just that it's maybe not one that we'll focus on right out of the gate.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Toddler-friendly playground, that's something that we would really like to do, that we've sort of identified that as like there's a lot of sort of sports facilities and play structures for sort of slightly older kids, but there isn't a place for really young kids to be able to kind of play safely. And obviously the skate park caters more towards older kids also. So complementing that skate park with a kids playground would be awesome. And it's super expensive, but it's totally worth fighting for, I think.
Certainly going to bring young moms there, and then they don't graduate to the.
Yep. And we've heard, one of the BCRC survey questions had to do with kind of the park here. And one of the things that we heard from people was that, a lot of people will come there with their kids. And if their kids aren't into the skate park, there's like sort of limited options right now of what else they can do. So we have some cool like toys and other things, but having like a piece of infrastructure for them, I think would be a great improvement.
The playgrounds is like, I'm trying to trying to visualize an actual need for it in a small rural town. I think it's stuff like that applies in more urban settings
Mhm.
than what we have.
Yeah.
So again, it would come down to the question of why?
Mhm.
Or is there an actual need?
Community.
People that live in this town can go out in their backyard or they can
Mhm.
find a place.
Totally
Nearby.
true. And yet, you know, being the entrepreneur, if I had a place where moms and kids were coming, I'm thinking an ice cream shop might work, you know, or, you know, something like that. And it might be the way we start to develop a town center again, you know, because you need to have people. So, you know, there's chicken and egg going on all the time here, but there might be great value to developing what's already a nice resource and building it up. Because of all the ancillary benefits that could come.
We may also want to consider, there are different families in Pownell, I'm sure, and not everybody has a playground in their backyard.
Mhm.
Not everybody has a backyard.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not, you know, I'm just.
Yeah, I don't think we're.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something.
I said the same thing about the skate park. I mean, I'm surprised at how many kids I actually see over there.
Well, yeah, you know, sort of regardless of how we all personally feel, like the reason that this was something that was in the BCRC study is because it was something that people responded to on the survey and said they wanted. So I think it's, that doesn't mean that everybody wants it, but it is coming from somewhere. And I think, you know, Parks and Recreation is really sensitive to the fact that the town has a super limited budget. So when we talk about something like a playground, we're immediately thinking about sort of where these funding sources could be that are sort of outside of the town. So I think, obviously, if the town thinks it's a worthy thing to pitch in on, that's great, but we're prepared to sort of move ahead with that without them if they don't have the money to do it. And yet, you know, on a personal note, yeah, like even if it doesn't benefit that many kids, like we do have young kids in our community, and yeah, like Alexander said, you know, our community is sort of socioeconomically sort of poorer on average than the sort of overall community, which means that there are probably folks that don't have access to reliable transportation. And for them to be able to get to a playground with their kids, you know, in town here, I think means something. And yeah, just like David said, like the part of the vision is really creating a sense of place here that would then allow us to develop this commercial district. And I think something like that helps a little bit. And I've talked with people out there who have come through from, I met someone in the wintertime who was out there with her little kid. They'd come from New York City. It was his birthday. And he just bought a new bike. And he was out there on the skate ramps with a shovel, shoveling off the snow so that he could ride. So yeah, there are people who come through from out of town and look down there and say, oh, hey, that's pretty cool. Let's just like stop in and hang out. So yeah, anything we can do to kind of attract more people in here, I think is worth considering.
Yeah, and we're also not envisioning a large playground, right? Just one or two pieces of equipment for the toddlers.
Yep.
Nothing huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, luckily a playground for toddlers is a lot less expensive than like, you know, something like Willow Park or whatever. That's, yeah, I mean, you're talking about, you know.
You build it and they will come, you know?
Yeah.
If you don't have it, they're not gonna come here for anything.
Absolutely. So let's see, expanding the parks amenity, delineate the parking spaces. I think there's actually a quote or like a request for a proposal out for that right now in town to get somebody to put markings back there. And then, yeah, this last one, community engagement, is a little more sort of ethereal, but obviously I think that's something we can all get behind, right? Like the sort of trying to keep residents excited about this, involving them in programming down here. And that's something that we're also certainly thinking about with Parks and Recreation.
The one thing we talked about a little bit was number 28 there, and specifically for the water, like a water fountain down there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually got some quotes on that. It's expensive, but it would bring water and electricity down there, would let us do things like having a band play or having a food truck come down. So, you know, I think they were talking about kind of, you know, $10,000 to $15,000 or something to kind of bring the infrastructure down there. So again, it's a big chunk of money, but if we can find a grant for it or something, that opens up the possibility of having bathrooms down there eventually. So I don't remember if that was in the BCRC report or not, but I think it's certainly worth
think that's certainly electricity was. I don't know about.
Well, and if they're talking about an amphitheater and food trucks, I think sort of, by default, they're talking about bringing utilities down there. So, I mean, that's everything that was, that's at least everything that was on the list that Jen pulled out. I mean, it seems like, I just want to make sure sort of it seems like the mini roundabout was maybe something that had sort of a little bit of controversy around it. Was there anything else that in there that people really feel like is just like absolutely not worth pursuing? So I guess kind of the next step is like, I mean, really, I don't envy this project you guys have to do. Like putting the town plan together is such an important thing. And it's probably the biggest project that any committee has to do. And we're throwing a bunch more stuff in your face that you're going to have to deal with. So we really appreciate you guys, slogging through this project. But yeah, I mean, take the report and yeah, like figure out a way to kind of condense it down in a way that feels good to you to sort of include either in a specific sense or just in a general sense, right? Like you don't have to say, put a crosswalk here, just support improving infrastructure to slow down traffic, make it safer for kids, and then we'll take care of the rest. And if you find anything in here that is for whatever reason controversial, let us know and we can, have a discussion about it and see whether it's worth pursuing.
Well, I just want to express appreciation to your committee for this.
This was all Jen.
The document was this, and this just helps us focus down on the key points. So, I think the bus stop is the one I am not seeing here. So maybe there are a few others, and if we comb through it, we'll find. But I think, I would like to see that added to this list, if that's what you're working from. But some of those clarity things, but this helps me. The report's big and thick and dense and a lot of verbiage. This is really a nice way for me to approach it.
Jennifer is just so on top of all this stuff and has just made such a heroic effort over the last couple. I mean, really, I like credit to everyone in Parks and Rec who was there before I was here. Jen is really excited about this. She knows how to run a meeting. She knows how to get stuff done. So like, if we can jump on some of this stuff now, we do have like support and enthusiasm and we're starting to kind of have the skill set we need to. So I think it's an exciting moment.
We even finish our suggestions.
So we are going to ask permission to apply for this scoping study grant from the select board. And that application has to be in July 11th. So we are going to, I think, as long as it's okay with you, we're going to try and kind of include as much of this stuff as we can. It's all bike ped stuff. So like the bus stops, the roundabout, the bike lanes, the side, all that stuff. And go a little deeper on that and get an idea of like, what's it all going to cost? What's the process? And also like whether or not an expert thinks it's a good idea. And then we can kind of take it from there.
Sounds great. Yeah.
Any other? I feel like I really monopolized that.
You did a great job.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, no, we really like, I feel like for a long time, committees have been kind of really siloed and I like kind of getting us all together so we can really talk about kind of what's important to all of us and collaborate on these things. So we really appreciate you guys. And I think
Anybody think I don't support your work?
Oh, that's not the impression I got at all, Fred.
I always wonder why we're doing this, why are we thinking this, what are we trying to achieve? That's totally what my.
And it's really smart to do that because it's the thing we constantly run into. And I do this all the time. I can get so enthusiastic about projects and then realize I'm way overextended and there's not actually enough people to achieve them. So we really do need to be thoughtful of like, yeah, all of these might be good ideas, but there's a limited amount of capacity. So like, what are the really, really important ones, right? That are gonna have the most effect.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we're on the same page and I really do appreciate your questions and concerns. Like that all really helps kind of inform how we do this. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, guys. We'll get out of your way. I assume you have some more stuff to do here, so.
Not much.
All right. Well, let's go.
This meeting was dedicated to this.
Well, we appreciate you making the space for it. Sorry.
With that, our next agenda item is to set our next meeting date and agenda items. If we have continue our work, agenda item would be continue our work with the vision statement. Town plan.
When we say set the next meeting, my understanding is we meet on the first and the third
Right.
Tuesday. Is that,
So let's.
are we
Pretty solid.
revisiting that?
Yeah.
So the next meeting would be the first.
July 1st.
Yeah. That.
If anybody has any agenda items they would like to put on there now, or we can.
Well, what I suggested to you earlier, we've been talking all around our vision, and there's been lots of interesting conversation around it. But if we're actually going to get to a vision statement, I was going to suggest if everybody came to the meeting with bullet points, this is what I care about in the vision statement. And we could go through them one by one, combine them where it made sense, or get rid of some language or whatever, and actually end up with, this is our vision for Pownell, boom, 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 boom. Because we have lots of good
So
conversations.
we discussed that before and we agreed to do that.
Well, I don't know if
We
we
didn't
ever did
follow up.
agree
We
to do
didn't
it.
follow up.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you said we're a beautiful town, that's it.
Well,
No, it's very good,
And we had a few in minutes from 2 or 3 meetings ago,
Yeah.
and, I sent a couple of
Yeah.
others, but it'd be great to just put them all up and said, so is this everything?
Yeah.
Is there something else we're missing? Just really try and hone it down.
worked on it a long time.
Complete a step.
So we're gonna.
Is there a blackboard or is that a blackboard? I mean, if we wanted to write them up here so people could look at them, is that available?
Whiteboard.
Yeah, it is, but I'm sure we can probably get something.
Get a whiteboard or something like that, that would probably make the process easier. Look at them and not have to remember them.
You want a man to board?
I have crappy handwriting and I can't spell.
Looked pretty good to me.
So, we're going to continue our discussion.
The other thing so the piece that we would discuss earlier that was missing from the notes from the last meeting was this idea of possibly extending the village district.
Right.
And it seemed like there was a time constraint on that, getting it included in the BCRC process, which would streamline it. So maybe we need clarity on that, but it might be in the, no, it might be.
I think we probably have an idea. It probably won't be real difficult to. Right. We had the maps.
But it seems like if we have the maps, maybe that's a useful.
Jim, you remember the
agenda.
big
There
maps?
are maps in the town plan
Yeah.
that extend it.
We had big maps we were working
Right,
from.
right.
We were just.
Your maps would, like this.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Now we need them.
Yeah. Yes. They still gotta be here somewhere.
When the town plans out in Carrots.
Yeah.
I mean,
Julie, yeah.
yeah.
So
So we.
if that's an
we get-
agenda
get
item, it'd be
those-
good to get the map so we could really look at it.
Lay it on the table and huddle around it like we did before.
And actually, the other thing related to that in my mind is where the sewer and water is. Because to me, that
It's
they
so
kind of dovetail a little bit.
So important.
So, and I noticed in our plan, we didn't have the sewer lines, and it seems like that's a key piece of information that should be in our. plan.
Can we get a map like that?
Well,
Yeah, you're asking the wrong
I was
person.
gonna say, I'm still learning, but.
yeah.
There is one, we just need to figure out where to get it.
Tom's got a big printer, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Well, it's,
You said you want one with the sewer lines on there?
Yeah.
the sewer, well, I mean, the water isn't, it's private, but it's good to know where it was.
I think we could get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that really relates to what's buildable commercially.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Actually, the state's saying you want to build along lines of water and septic.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of it, really, in one
So
area,
that-
in 2 areas.
That's really 2 agenda items, but a number of pieces we need in order to fulfill them.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Humor vision work. And
Village district extension.
Expanded districts for contracting.
Mhm.
Anything else?
Public comment?
Oh, it's investigation. Anything else on that? Next agenda.
Was there a public comment?
Yeah, go on. Public comment.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted, Tom Zolper, Center Street, I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents on this topic that you were talking about tonight. Been working with Nate on it. We're gonna be working together on trying to get the money to get this thing started. A couple things to me like worth underlining. First, we're not gonna spend a dime of town money. I think that's an assumption, you know. And I think the realities of that will knock off some of the stuff over the years. It just makes a nice dream on paper. So I would kind of encourage you to kind of dream big rather than say that's not possible, that's not possible, because the possibilities we'll learn about that as we try to get the money, especially now everybody's trying to get money from, you know, the state or whatever. That's one thing. Another thing I just wanted to sort of underline this thing, scoping report that Nate was talking about. It's kind of like the first baby step. It's not actually getting money to do these things. It's not even design work. It's the state has got to go say, do we really want a crosswalk on Route 7 where you're suggesting we have it? You know, we'll cross the Barber or down at School Road. It's kind of just the first baby steps, but they do need some specific proposal that you're coming to them with. So for you guys, I would think, like, even if you're not thrilled with some of these ideas of BCRC, they don't have the last word, BCRC. I think they were valuable as they really made an effort to find out what people wanted, and the select board really forced them to do that. You know, don't just send out a couple of letters. They worked hard, but they're not the last word. You guys are, and the select board really is ultimately the last word. So if you have other ideas in the big picture of how do we make this little village, this one of 3 villages, connect better, maybe encourage economic development from, you know, what they're now calling recreational tourism, bikers and electric bikers and all that. If we can agree on that part, that's all we need to get this scoping report going, you know, and a couple of specific ideas for them to sort of test out. But anyway, it was just a couple of things.
Thank you.
I think you need to invite the representative in Montpelier to come to a meeting and start with him. Really, he's a good kid, and you know, I'd like to ask him a couple of things personally, and maybe, you know.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
if you're interested in talking with him, I mean, I know Jonathan.
Well, I know him well too.
I mean, I'm happy to like invite him to come, like have a chat with you guys if you want to.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we got to find out. You know, I'd like to know what's going on at the racetrack.
Yep.
That's in Montpelier's hands, and it's disgusting, very disgusting.
Yep.
That they don't, you know, let us know what's going to a piece of property that's valuable to us. And that, you know.
If you, after the meeting, I can tell you the little bits that I do know about what's going on with it. From what generally, it seems like there hasn't been a whole heck of a lot of progress, but there is a lawsuit kind of working its way through the system.
Well, they just need to tear down the building.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Yeah.
And then you could do a lot of things there.
Hey,
You know, I mean, it's just a beautiful area, and it's just growing up. I'm not even got a fireworks this year.
Nobody, just us.
Just us.
Just us is good. James isn't here tonight? What's the matter?
Scared him off. He's got some things to say about the whole racetrack around.
Jimmy's all right. He's good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's, I think he got hooked up with him this week. Anyway, that being that, hey, we're on the road. We are. Very good.
Any more public comment? So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would make a motion to adjourn. Yes.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Good going.